I lost like 10 grand in a deal with Snack Nation. So, and the Snack Nation CFO told me that I would never amount to anything because of the emails that were getting exchanged by Tom, and it was a whole thing. And can I put this here?
Yeah, of course you can. How's it going?
Easy access.
Easy access. Got the coffee.
It's going well.
Want to give a shout out? Where'd you get the coffee?
I got this from here.
Okay,
this is our coffee.
It's Gnarwhal.
Yeah, Gnarwhal,
So,
sunny day.
show of hands, who's been to Gnarwhal Coffee?
Love Gnarwhal.
Yeah. What about Companion? Anyone been there?
Amazing.
Okay.
More you need to go to Companion.
More people need to go there on Lincoln Boulevard. We'll get to that in a second. Let's start with a couple things. So before we kind of dive into some of these deep, meaningful travels, I want to start with something, and I actually skipped ahead. I have this great quote that I wanted to put there, but I got too excited to see all of you. I wanted to put this on the screen because it actually had a picture of a place that is deeply meaningful for you, and that's Big Sur. Literally, you just got back from there. I wanted to kind of start with the origin story of that and what Big Sur has done for you, and actually how it even shaped the story of the name Gnarwhal Coffee.
Yeah, well, so, first of all, thanks for coming, you guys. This is really cool to be here, and I'm very excited to work with Mike and share a little bit about my journey and hopefully inspire some of you guys in whatever pursuits you guys are doing that you feel are worthwhile. So, Big Sur, it honestly goes back really deep for me, is more of just the Highway 1 in general. Growing up, like every year during summer, my parents would drive up PCH to go visit my uncle in Sandy, Oregon, and we would literally take PCH all the way from LA to Sandy. So yeah, it was a literal yearly trip for us, and we barely missed like a year. It was just an important part of the journey. And my mom is like very much, I think I kind of told you this, like museum art lady. Like she'll spend 4 hours like looking at a gallery, and you're like, okay, I've seen this painting like 9 times already. And then my dad is like the complete opposite. Like he'll spend like, the afternoon searching for a bear. And it's like, like just hiking wherever he can. So it was this really beautiful mix of like, as we would drive up, we would have to stop at the Hearst Castle, or we would also get to stop in Big Sur. And it was like this cool dichotomy. And then fast forward to probably would be 2014, I think, right? I was driving with my then girlfriend, now wife, to go visit my family who had like a campsite in Big Sur. And on the drive up, I just feel that I get so much inspiration from that drive because I can recall so many memories. And I had this like Instagram account that I called California Gnarwhal, and it was just, please don't look that up. There's probably like pictures of bongs and things on there, but it was like it was like a sorry,
following immediately.
It was like I would post like weird artistic like images and things on there that I thought was cool when I was like 17. And Dakota was like, "What is this?" And I'm like, "You're right. I don't know." And then it just kind of clicked. We were like, narwhals are kind of gnarly. And then we were like, oh my God, that's such a good brand name. But we didn't want to be like LA kids that started like another clothing brand. So we like sat on that name for quite some time. But it was inspired by, I think, by just being on the road and just talking. And I find when I'm on the road, I very rarely am listening to music outside of like we're listening to music moments. I like always, it's probably on, and music is so important to me, but it's just this thing I think about being on the road. I like love windshield time and just talking and like airing things out, and I think my best ideas truly come from the road. So Big Sur just kind of like represents that for me, because it's sort of that like in between mark. It feels like, all right, I'm away from home now when I get to Big Sur. Santa Barbara's familiar, Cambria, whatever, those like places along the way, but Big Sur, I finally feel like I'm out here, I'm away.
I love that. I love that you actually just kind of ran in a few different directions there, because the open road.
Get ready.
Well, no, I love this because you can see the open road has that for you. It kind of sparks so much conversation within you. Let's go back for a second, because you actually talked about growing up and how you had that balance in both your parents and kind of introducing you, whether it's to art or to nature and that kind of stuff, and how it's really propelled you on this journey. Any special trips that you took as a kid besides Big Sur, which is we just referenced. Anything else that really stands out that left that lasting impression?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, my brother was in the Marine Corps, so from the time I was literally like 2 years old, we were visiting him. He was stationed in Austria for a while, and Germany. So, and he was young at that time, so my parents wanted to go visit him. He also got married for like a month to an Austrian woman, and
by the way, that happens. I've been there a couple times. It's okay.
So we went out for that wedding, but literally from the age of like 2 years old till I was very fortunate to have these like experiences that. Coming from a family that like we didn't, I wouldn't say like we had a comfortable life, but it wasn't necessarily like, you know, my dad like lost everything when he was young, in his like mid 30s and had to rebuild that whole thing. 2008, he was a, you know, construction worker. So there wasn't a whole lot being built in 2008. So, you know, it wasn't like it wasn't full of the most amount of money, but my parents really valued experiences, and they were also very generous with what we did do. And I was just telling Dakota that something that I really value about her parents and my parents is that when they commit to something, so like if we're going on a vacation or we're going on a trip, they don't like worry about anything back home. It's like we are present, we are on that trip, and we're going to enjoy it. So from a very early age, like I had those experiences, and they were filled with a lot of presence and like a lot of it steeped in like immersion, you know. And that's I don't know if you can give your child a better gift than that, you know. So yeah, I mean, early trip to Barcelona, I remember like was very impactful on me because my dad is a tile guy. And so all of the Gaudi, like, you know, my mom's like nerding out on like Gaudi, and then my dad actually gets it this time. So they're both just like, this is insane. And I remember just being like, this is pretty cool, but it looks like, you know, some tile on a wall, you know, like, but then as seeing their passion, like, that was such a marquee moment for me of being like, whoa, like they really like care about this. And then it was also filled with like such amazing like beach moments there. And I just remember that one being like this cool collaborative like thing where I think I got a good example of like the melding of worlds and kind of where, you know, two paths can converge in a really beautiful way. Yeah, I mean, I could go on forever.
Yeah,
that was one that like sticks out.
I love how you kind of run with this, and like as I mentioned earlier, I got a chance to meet you in 2019, and you were just launching Gnarwhal, but I knew from the moment I met you, you had stories and experience, and you were just a warm. Actually, Dakota too. Both of you were just like so warm and inviting, and that you've had these experiences in life. And I bring up Big Sur, and I look at the stuff with your parents and your past journeys, because what you've created with Gnarwhal Coffee, not even just as a direct-to-consumer business, but opening the shop, is really community-centric. And so I wanted to use these travels as a way to kind of come back to this founder story and this community story of how does it represent community for you, and where do you feel like, I guess, your local lens being a Venetian?
I think I need to have more, I think I need to appreciate my home a little bit more than I do, if I'm being really honest. I have always had this urge to like run away and do all of these travels. But really recently in my life, when I've done these trips, whether it's like with friends or with Dakota or with family or all the above, I have really been like called back home and like really excited to return home. And I think that's a good sign. But I think if I'm being really transparent, I need to appreciate like what I have here a little bit more. And I think I have like two worlds where I have like the wanderlust, like I want to just hit the road and forget about everything and like document it and write about it. And then I have this other side of me that really is like a very hard worker and a bit of a workaholic and like has an insatiable like appetite for like growth and like, you know, just going. And so when I'm here, or like the journey for Gnarwhal it was all completely self-funded, started in my parents' garage, and actually literally in a room inside of their garage, and then went to like a second bedroom to another garage. You know, like it's been a very scrappy journey, and I had my head down in the weeds so hard to like make this thing work. And it hasn't been until recently where I've really backed up and like just like looked around me and been like, this is the most incredible community I could have ever asked for. And a lot of that, of course, like comes from being in the shop and working hard and like putting out a great product and like being available to the community. But I think like just COVID and like all of the things we went through with that really showed me that, you know, I was taking for granted, I think, a little bit of like how much that community means to me. I mean, the Co in Gnarwhal Coffee Co literally stands for community, and it has since the beginning, before we even had a shop, and we were just selling stuff online. So I've always known that it's there, but I don't think appreciated it as much as I should.
I think calling yourself out on that, I mean, it's when you're in that process head down, especially as an entrepreneur. By the way, if you're not following Nick on Instagram, you should, because he just put out a video about the Boogie Woods. And I'm not going to tell you too much about the Boogie Woods because it's a great video, and I think it's a great interpretation of what you just described. Your head down, doing what you need to. It's interesting, you know, you talked about leaving and coming back, right? A lot of us, when we travel, we get so fired up, we come back and want to feel that difference, make an impact at home. And I think I shared with you that the dictionary definition of travel sometimes is to go from one place to another, generally over a long distance. But we look at what you've done with Gnarwhal and create this coffee community here in LA and Venice. You're creating that space and that presence and that community at home. So let's talk about a couple things. Let's talk about how you did, where your inspiration and your entrepreneurial vision came from in any of your travels. Is there any one trip that like was that spark?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, well, I just don't really like working for people, so that.
I mean, I get that too.
That was just like an early indicator of like I'm having a hard time with a job. But I had a trip in 2015 where it was actually for school. I did a research project where we circumnavigated New Zealand on a 133-foot schooner, like sailboat, and it was fully equipped with like all. Marine biology, like scientific gear that we could deploy for different research that some grad students and some undergrad students were doing. And then there was just like kind of me, you know, just like studying like the origins of tattooing, you know, which was cool. But ultimately my hard drive got spoiled and the film never came out. But so that trip was insane because I was surrounded by people that were doing so much for the world, you know, and like I had these like deep desires to be a part of that, but I don't think I really had any focus. I just was kind of like, let me participate in this journey because it's a cool adventure and I can like document it, and then kind of getting that humble pie of like, these people actually really care about what they're doing on a very intimate and deep level. And they can provide a lot more for me as like a student than just, like being a maritime history teacher or something. Like these are people that I still am in contact with today. So the community of a boat is like a very impactful experience, especially when you're on it for 4.5 months together. And in some cases we hadn't seen land for like 3 weeks, right? Stretches at a time. And those sort of experiences like really teach you, it's like a microcosm of the world. You know, you have 33 people that are all trying to figure out who's what and who leads and who follows and when to follow, when to lead. And when, you know, that experience definitely, I think on an entrepreneurial level, in terms of like team building and camaraderie, that was probably one of the most impactful trips of my life because, trying to figure out how to organize when somebody is going insane from not seeing land for 2 weeks is like a challenge, you know? And then also just like your health and like vitality, keeping your mental health like good. Like there's just so many layers to that. And I was the two leaders, the first mate and the captain on that ship couldn't have been better human beings and better leaders. So that was like one part of that trip. And then the other part of that was that every place that we stopped in New Zealand, we were all rushing to cafes because, just trying to get in contact with folks back home, our friends and family, but also because New Zealand and Australia have really fucking incredible coffee. So it was like a fun place for us to go and experience that. And what I noticed on that trip, and it really stuck with me, was that the cafe like was just a completely different experience to what was happening to cafes at home for me, which is like no one take this the wrong way, but you go into a lot of cafes and it's just a bunch of laptops and people like working. And it's rare that you have those moments where it's like roaring with like people that are coming off a swim club or just like meeting a friend and having a chat. And those moments do happen, but they're more of a flash in the pan, where the majority of these like small towns in the middle of nowhere, New Zealand, was filled with people just being a part of the community. Like probably could make coffee at home, but we're coming there because they hadn't seen a human being. They've only seen sheep for like, 12 hours, and they're like, I need to go get a coffee and see someone. So yeah, that was very impactful.
That's kind of incredible how that stayed with you that whole time of that experience. And, you and I were talking about something actually before this conversation today, in referencing, let's just say the fires in the Palisades, and referencing that you helped with some of the first responders to provide coffee. And we talked a lot about that, donations are great and financial support is awesome, but you were really moved. A lot of these guys were literally moved to tears by just having a good cup of coffee. And we talked about how coffee is that ritual. It's that thing that, they were pounding Red Bulls or doing other things to keep them going, but the coffee symbolizes so much more. And it's interesting that you had that experience with community in New Zealand. Curious, where else in the world have you had that coffee experience that you then bring back to you, and what does it mean so much to you in the community side?
I think recently, it was actually around tea. I was in India last year for about 3 weeks, and we did a really insane trip. Some friends of mine and I, we drove rickshaws through
That's just amazing.
From through the hottest desert in India, and then finished in the Himalayas in a spot called Leh Ladakh, right on the border of Pakistan. And it was an absolutely insane journey. We didn't go faster than 20 miles an hour the entire journey. Even down 16,000 foot mountains, we're still just tapped out at 20 miles an hour. It was a very slow journey. But we stopped for, every time we stopped for masala chai, it was such a beautiful experience, and so different than that country in general. I think was so different to anywhere I'd ever traveled in the best way, so uniquely themselves. And even just culturally, the biggest sport being cricket, and it's just so removed from our normal way of thinking or our interpretation of what's important. And it just was a reframing for me of lifestyle. And this is coming, I lived in China for 3.5 months, and still this, to me, India is even more, it's just its own place in the best way. And the chai culture there, or their fika or their coffee stop or their morning moment. And I remember multiple times on that trip where somebody that was making our chai would tell us it was the elixir of life or something in that capacity. And I was they really, really cared about what they were making. And also it was so delicious. And that was such a unique cultural experience where you'd be at a roadside stop and somebody was so passionate about what they're doing and so amazing at what they're doing. And also, I think in general, we have we've become so accustomed to a chai concentrate in a pitcher with some milk. We steam it up, we pour cinnamon on top, and we're like, this is great. You paid $8 for this and it's amazing. And it's it's actually not. And this is so far removed from what I was experiencing, where you'd have a pot that had spices and tea and, cloves and all kinds of things simmering in it for 9 hours throughout the day. And they're just adding to it. And, you go in there and it's the same, chai spices, same chai and same masala spices from earlier in the day, but they're just adding some new ones and some fresh milk. And you can't replicate that flavor, but also that process is really beautiful. And that community of people just sat there and they didn't have their phones out and they would sit around. And it was a relatively quick experience, almost akin to an Italian espresso stop where people are there, but usually it was some sort of little Dixie cup, little 4-ounce Dixie cup, and you fill it a few times. And I have so many moments. I'm about to post a lot of those on my social media where I would just sit there and we would just be looking at each other, me and some Indian dude, just we couldn't talk to each other at all, but we're just kind of smiling and enjoying ourselves. And it was so it was most amazing cultural experience that I've had, and oftentimes outside as well, which I loved, like off the side of the road in some beautiful valley or in a beautiful desert. And it's just like, it was so comforting and warming.
I love that. How has your lens changed as a traveler since you opened your shop? Do you come back?
Oh yeah, sorry. I was going to tie that back for you. Please. I completely changed our chai tea program at Gnarwhal when I got home. So I like totally ditched those concentrates and like went and found a company that's like woman owned that is an Indian woman, and a woman that was did like a yoga teacher training, was really inspired, and they created this amazing company called Soul Chai. And I'm really passionate about what they do, and it's very spicy and delicious, and it is sweet, just like the chais you get in India, but it is not bullshit. It is like real.
Amazing. There you go.
That's how it affected me.
I know. I love that, because I was curious, like, now that you have this amazing community hub, so you just kind of answered that. It's like, how did your lens really change to like see things in the world? Coffee, chai, those things are such staples no matter where you go. You just kind of kicked off with that. I'm going to do this. I would love for you also to share a little bit more about Gnarwhal, the foundation, but also Companion. And as you do that, I'm going to go to this next, share about that, but I'm going to go to this next slide that we're going to have you share stories about these. I stalked you a little bit on Instagram and just pulled three random pictures. But share a little bit also about Gnarwhal, the foundation, and then let everyone know about Companion, who's not been there yet, what this is and where the vision for that came from.
Yeah, but for the foundation, we're in like a little bit of like a in-between period, I'd say. I think we're trying to find where we can not just donate money, but we can also donate our time and like our bodies and our able bodies, and also our employees around us who care about things. So instead of, we were cycling through a nonprofit every month. We were matching the tips dollar for dollar in the shop. So any tip that our staff would get, we'd put $1 towards a different foundation that we'd rotate at first once a month, and then we changed it to once a quarter because we wanted to do like more programming outside of just like, again, writing a check. And then now we've sort of just been like accruing that capital in the foundation and just deploying it in a method that feels like we can be more involved and maybe create like a bit more of like a lasting impact. Something that I want to work on, and I can get into Companion here, but as we took our step like into more food offerings, and we brought on a chef business partner, I think just like food scarcity and also like in general, like organic food is something that we're really passionate about, and that connection to local farmers. So I think what we're going to try and do is like bridge that gap. And if anybody has any connections to, and I really mean this, to like local, like there's the little shared gardens that you have in like Santa Monica and like the one over in Venice by the baseball field. Nobody ever answers their email at any of those. So if you work for any of those places, I'm sorry, but I'm calling you out right now. Nobody has responded to me, but I would love to make like a community plot there and then start to incorporate some of those ingredients in our restaurants and in our cafes. And then also be able to like take the youth to that. So I think that's where I want to get like kids that maybe wouldn't have like an opportunity to experience gardening, just like a really basic, thing that we take for granted. I would love to like bridge that gap. So anyways, that's a little plug.
I think I might have an intro for you on that one. Curious for something from the startup standpoint, because I know, especially in today's world, a lot of conscious brands, startups, try and find ways to do the give back. Was that something always on the mindset, even as you started rolling out Gnarwhal?
I mean, for sure it was like from the beginning. We started as an e-commerce brand and like direct to consumer and doing like local grocery distribution. And so in that we would always try and find, I think we've kind of always had a hard time like finding, I don't love to just write a check. Like I studied environmental science. I'm really passionate about this, and it just never felt like good enough to me. So we've done like the sea trees. We've done like One Tree Planted, thank you. Where we would like plant a tree for every bag sold. We've done like a lot of different things, but again, like at the end of the day, on those you submit a report and you write a check, and you've like checked your box of like sustainability, right. And that has never really felt like super authentic to me. So it has been important, but the foundation I think is the closest we've gotten to any semblance of like where we want to be with the impact. And a lot of that was driven by a community member named Thomas Fuller, who some of you may know, but Tom is probably the most important person outside of Dakota in my journey, and has been a mentor to me. And wow, I'm getting emotional. somebody that like, him and his husband had a very profound impact on my life, and he was the one that really wanted to have the foundation and like wanted to match the tips dollar for dollar. So he really pushed us and like has held us accountable in more ways than one to this foundation, but also just to like the community space, you know? So I have to give him a lot of credit.
Unpack that relationship a little more, because that obviously choked you up. How's that connection? Where did the relationship come in? And how's the camaraderie really helped you on your journey?
Yeah, so Tom and his husband Bill were regulars at Espresso Cielo, which was the cafe on that we are currently at with Gnarwhal, and they also have another location on 2nd Street. And I was general managing those for about like a year and a half before the Main Street location became Gnarwhal. And so Tom and Bill would come in every day at around 3. We would close at 4. They'd get an espresso and a cortado, and they'd go on a 3-mile walk. Like, it was like clockwork. It was like 3 o'clock. They're walking down with like 9 rescued chihuahuas that are going like absolutely nuts. And they're like telling you every day, like, it's fine, they're fine. And they're like biting each other and like going nuts. And then, so we got like to chatting, and Tom is like a reserved person at first, but like when you crack him open, like he's a very, he's a very deep person. Like, you're not going to have like a surface level conversation with Tom. So we would have these, and I was telling him at the time, I'm like, I started this coffee company, blah, blah, blah. And then he was very pessimistic on my chances of surviving and gave me some terrible business advice. And I lost like 10 grand in a deal with Snack Nation. So, and the Snack Nation CFO told me that I would never amount to anything because of the emails that were getting exchanged by Tom. And it was a whole thing. And so the next day that Tom came in, I was like, hey, I might go under because of you. And he was like, oh shit, sometimes it doesn't work, you know? It was like and I was like, wow, this guy is pretty special. And fast forward, I like left that job for some reason decided that it would be a good idea to leave that job and to just focus on Gnarwhal, which was doing like $7,000 in revenue at the time, unprofitably. And so left that job, focused on Gnarwhal full time. Dakota and I in like September, in July. This is why you get a wife.
I know that.
We rode our bikes to the beach, and I did not want to go to the beach. Like, I like forgot my towel. I was like pissed off and like wanted to like lay on the couch and like cry about like my life and like Gnarwhal. And we're there, and I'm like, oh my God, there's Tom. And like, if you guys know me, I love to talk. And I was like, I do not want to say hi. And Nico's like, what? Like, you got to say hi. Like, that's Tom. And I'm like, I'm not really feeling it right now. Like, I just know he's going to like come over here and like, it's going to be unsolicited truth. And sure enough, he's like, can I sit with you guys? Like, I said hi, and I'm like looking at her like, fucking told you. And he like sat in the sand next to us, and then he was like, I'm going through an existential crisis. I just bought that cafe. And I'm like the one I was managing. And I was like, why the fuck did you buy that cafe? Because like, we're coming off COVID. Like, we don't know if retail's ever coming back. This is like fresh COVID. Or like, actually, it's like refresh COVID. It was like after the first round of COVID, and then it like came back, and we're like, oh shit, we're screwed again. Sorry, so that happened. And then I'm like, why'd you do that? And he's like, do you want to manage it? And I was like, no, but I would definitely make it a Gnarwhal, because I sat in there and I would literally journal, like watching around, like what I would do to that. Like, I literally have doodles of like what I would change in that place. And he's like, all right, come over tomorrow and talk about it. And we have a picture, Dakota and I, like, of me out front, like, you know, that day where I'm like, this is going to be mine. Like, not actually thinking it was going to be mine. And then, yeah, we went to dinner the next day, and Tom, his investment was giving us the keys.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, that's a beautiful story.
Yeah. And then from there, like, he's just had a really profound impact on our life. I mean, we showed him our financials, and he was like, this is complete bullshit and this is terrible, but like, I like you and I believe in you. And he was right about that. Like, a lot of what we were doing, we weren't doing well, but it wasn't because we're trying to pull the wool over anybody's eyes. We just didn't know what we were doing. And so, he made that his investment, and his husband Bill passed away like a year later, and it was a bit of like a sudden thing. And I think after that, like Tom and I got really close for a while because his family's in like North Carolina, South Carolina, and they've been in Venice for 40 years. They built they built their own community here. He's involved, maybe not financially, but in some consultative manner with every restaurant that you frequent in Venice. He's just a very important and special person, and Bill was like a big part of that. And so when we opened Companion, he gave us a loan to do that, private loan that we would never be able to get from a bank, because of, we made right on our deal with him at Gnarwhal. So that's Tom. He's a really special, brash, honest, insane person.
Who's had a big impact on your life and your career.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
I want to go back before we jump into these pictures, because as I mentioned, even in my open, talking about the travel stories I've heard from people and how he created this how to travel with meaning and the principles. And you've touched on two of them. One is it's the people, right? It's not where you go, but who you meet along the way. It's the people that we all meet. And also you talked about presence. And sometimes when you travel, you feel like we're more present than we're home. But how do we then bring these things and these moments home? And thank you for sharing that story with Tom, because I think it also comes back to what you talked about, is that sometimes you miss these things at home, but you just shared an incredible journey about a man who literally changed the course of your life here in your neighborhoods. That's rad. Thank you for that. Let's unpack these. What do we got here?
Yeah. Okay. So far left.
Again, I stalked a little bit on Instagram, so what? It's okay.
So far left is in very south China, in the Tiger River Gorge. Was this crazy, like, insane place in right near the Tibetan Plateau. So not Tibet, but like right on the border of Tibet, in the Snow Jade mountain range, which I'm sure sounds like way more beautiful in Mandarin, but that's roughly like what it translates to. I lived in Shanghai for about like 4 months, and talk about like travel with meaning. It was for the only job I've ever had. And it was a leadership development program. But what was really cool about my time in China is that I got a Chinese, basically like someone from the consulate to develop you as like a leader from the US that knows how to like interact with. It was a really deep program, actually, that like knows how to interact with like Chinese virtue and principle and business. So like, instead of going into a meeting and like applying what your preconceived idea of business in China, but actually like getting on, their level of how they do business and how they also just like culturally interact. And as like a 21-year-old, it was a very deeply profound program. And this was like towards the end of that program where I was just like adventuring out there, and that was a very, very impactful time.
Amazing.
In my leadership world.
What do we got in the middle? I mean,
the middle looks
like a good time to me. But.
Me drinking a beer with some awesome Mexican dudes in San Miguel de Allende.
Tell me the story about where that
was actually on Dakota and I's honeymoon, and we
so it's not just these guys. She's there too somewhere.
She took that photo.
Okay.
The insane part about this photo is that on our honeymoon, we decided to do an overnight horse packing tour. And this was not like glamping, like you're on a horse and you like show up and there's like a tent made for you. This was like Dakota's on a stallion and I'm on like a fresh out the wild horse with like these insanely epic rancheros in San Miguel de Allende. And if anybody wants to do this experience, I got the contact. But I thought we were gonna collapse at the end of this journey, and so much so that we were like, I think we're gonna go back to our hotel tonight. Thank you so much. Like, we did not stay the night in the wild on this because it was our honeymoon, and we were like so sore that I couldn't walk the next day. I mean, we literally went like 12 hours through the bush in the middle of Mexico. They were like picking cactus off the side of like these trails and like cooking us like meals, like literally from fires that he's having me make with like a cast iron skillet that looked like it was from like the 1920s. It was like the most epic he's like literally pulling a cast iron like out of his like back pocket, like, let's just make tortillas. And you're like, we're like made tortillas from scratch. We like milked the cow to like make our cheese. And I know this is sounding really bougie, but I'm telling you, it was like Dakota's covered in like fresh cow milk, like on her nice, like cute outfit. So that was that moment, like halfway through. This is like a 30-person town, and they of course had like a beautiful little liquor store, and that was like the only thing they had. And so we just sat there and drank beers. And the last picture, I would imagine, is what you started telling us about. This is my Vogue cover shot. Yeah. Just kidding. This was in the Thar Desert. This was like a low point of the journey, believe it or not, even though I'm like smizing in that. It was like 100 and probably like 109 degrees on the road. And we're just on this like actually really nice asphalt road, like a fresh road. But that almost made it worse because it was just like emanating with heat. And we hadn't seen like any shade in, hours. And we found this like little palapa, and we like pulled off the side of the road. And that was the only semblance of like non-heat exhaustion for like 2 days. And for anyone who's never seen or been in a rickshaw, that's what Nick was talking about as far as traveling, these little buggies and that experience. By the way, the most like capable adventure vehicle of all time. 100%. Like, so are you getting one here for Venice? I would love to, but I just can't go that. No? I can't go that far. Okay. You know? Let me ask you this question. Like French Bulldog, like 2 coffee shops, drives a rickshaw around, like... I don't know. It kind of seems like it goes hand in hand, but I'm just... All right. Let me ask you this question. What does travel mean to you? Curiosity. Was it a one word? No, it's whatever you want it to be. Yeah. Probably curiosity. That's cool. What travel means to me, you know? It's beautiful. Yeah. All right. I love that. Let's give it up for Nick. I'm going to do this. We're going to do a speed round of questions, and then we're going to open it up for a few questions from you guys. Coming up, we are going to raffle off a 4-day camper van rental from Travelers Auto Barn. But before we get there, we're going to do a speed round because why not? And because it's fun. So here's what we're going to do. How fast do I have to answer? Well, my timer didn't work on this, so we're going to do this. We're going to put 60 seconds on the clock, even though there is no clock. We're going to pretend like there's a clock because for the podcast, this will be a clock-ish. Ready? I'm super competitive, so. Yeah, I could tell. I like that. All right. 60 seconds on the clock, starting now. Current country count. Oh, God. I'm off to a rough start. Probably like, let's just go 15. Place you still want to visit? Africa. Place you tell people to visit? India. Window or aisle? Aisle. Mountains or beach? Beach. Airbnb or hotel? Hotel. Boat or train? Boat. Train. Scuba dive, skydive? Scuba. Kindle, hard copy? Hard copy. Sunrise, sunset? Sunrise. World Cup, World Series? World Series. North Pole, South Pole? South Pole. Do you collect anything from your travels? Stamps. The thing you need on a flight? Water. Best travel lesson? Slow down. Favorite national park? Yellowstone. Favorite airline? United. Favorite hotel? I haven't stayed in enough. Favorite food? My tent. Italian, because my grandma would kill me if I didn't say that. Favorite place in the world? That was the timer. Kauai. Well said. Let's give it up again for Nick. Boom, that was good. Thanks. All right, I'm going to open up for a couple questions from anyone before we get to our raffle here. Anybody got a question for Nick? Even if you don't, somebody. Oh, go ahead. Who's got? You first. You mentioned that you wanted to reconnect with your local community or do a better job connecting with community in Venice. What are things you have planned for the next 6 months, say, that do that? Yeah, great question. I think like immediately we just started doing, like I mentioned, music's very important to me. So we started doing these like community events that are just free, where we bring in musicians, we pay them, but we don't expect any like payment from the community, which I think is a really important thing actually, where you're not putting up like a barrier to entry. It's just like come, first serve kind of idea, and no capacity, just enjoy it. So those music events have been really special, and I think that's a good way to engage the local community, but also like selfishly for myself to be able to like curate something that still feels artistic and like intentional with what I care about. The next one is on June 7th. It's a jazz night at Gnarwhal, which is really cool, like full like 5-piece jazz band. So that's been like one way. I think another way is just like I'm just in the restaurant more now, you know, like I'm there every night, and I think like touching tables and like interacting. Like I have some of our beautiful like guests that have been there are here today, and I think just like taking the time and being able to sit at a table with somebody from the community, which I do every night. And if you don't believe me, come to Companion.
Hey, really quick, we share about Companion because we touched on it. Tell us what it is. What do you serve, and why should people come check you out?
Yeah, it's a East Coast Italian inspired menu, but we definitely lean, I would say, like a bit into the California world, just because of produce and farmers market. And it's 7 to 3, like a normal coffee shop, coffee and pastries, kind of taking my background from Gnarwhal and some of the other stuff I've done, even like here, and incorporating that. And then from 5 to 10, it's like a very just cutesy like Italian restaurant with all the things, you know. Cool. Really good wine list, insane wine list.
Also just want to kind of make sure we piggyback on the great question about what do you do in the next 6 months. Anyone here who has connections to local farms or anything program wise, I know I saw Nicole here in the back, and I know she would be all over that with you. So just something that you're envisioning in the future, being able to help in the food sourcing, but also education for kids.
Yeah, totally. I mean, our chef is insanely talented. I'm telling you guys, like, I've been around food my whole life. My whole family's had restaurants. Dakota's dad is a chef, and he's truly one of the best cooks and chefs I've ever met. And I feel very lucky to be his business partner. And I think like activating him a bit more. He also grew up in Venice, which is cool. And I think activating him and like his chops and like how to he worked the farmers market. He's done everything in food. So being able to have him translate like that to some younger folks, some youth, I've like, this is how you can take basil from the garden, and this is how you can actually pick it and like save the plant, but also like make a delicious pasta with it. And this is why it's important, you know? So yeah, I think that is sort of the connection that I'm looking to forge there.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. And we had a question somewhere over here, I know.
I'm curious, with all your travels, like what's your one observation that is sort of a commonality between all the people you've met? And then secondarily, if we're looking at Venice in the next 2 years or 3 years, because we have the Olympics, what would you like Venice to look like between now and then? That's
an amazing question. So thank you for that. And these are, I think, the important conversations for our community. And to answer your first one, I think like the commonality in traveling, maybe this is also just because of what I do and what I've done in my life, but definitely hospitality is like the through line through everything. And just if you have an open mind and an open heart, I think like if you're putting out good intentions, the commonality of all my travels is like I usually have some insanely intimate openness from every country I've ever been, whether it's Mexico or India or New Zealand or whatever. It's, you go in, if you have genuine curiosity and an open heart, I think more often than not, people will invite you in and show you their culture. So to me, that's like the through line of like all my travels is you asked me like what hotel is your favorite, but like I've never really stayed in hotels until I got a wife. And so for me, it's always been like camping or like sleeping on someone's couch or like just figuring it out, sometimes Airbnbs. And India was definitely like an experience in that way. New Zealand was very much an experience in that way. And I've never had a negative experience doing that. And I think that's like the through line on all the travels. And in terms of Venice over the next couple of years, I think we're in a really interesting place where like I believe there's a lot of amazing creators and like people around us, and I think a lot of really awesome businesses and good restaurants. And I think what I would like to see is some more creativity in retail. I think retail is really important for good community, good, for especially tourism, people coming in, which is important to us here. But also, consumerism has always been an American trait, but I think what we see now is Abercrombie's full of a bunch of places that don't represent us. And it's clear that when you go there on the weekends, like it's not our community. And that's not, again, like that's not to say like if you're not part of our community, get out. It's more just like it doesn't feel like there's a place where people are mixing on like some of our main thoroughfares where we've priced out our local community. We have, sort of prioritized, I think, greed and making money over, and this is no new shocking information, but my desire would be to see some of people from our community get a little bit more creative with the retail spaces, like activating Lincoln. I think Lincoln is such a cool, interesting place, and like in the context of like LA, it's got so much history, and it's also affordable. And I think like a good way for us to kind of say like fuck the system, for lack of a better expression, and be like, let's go make this, what is, I think, often looked at as like a decrepit, dirty street, and let's make it really cool. So I think like figuring out a way to get creative and like take power back for ourselves is an important thing. And then just like more bike lanes, just like more protected bike lanes everywhere. I like rode my bike here today. I try and ride my bike to both of the businesses as much as possible. And I can't imagine how much better our little beach town would be if we just had more protected bike lanes, honestly. Yeah.
Well said.
Is that what you were looking? Yeah, cool.
That's great. One final question, or we're good? Anyone? Okay, cool.
Oh, also, what we could do? I'm sorry.
No,
I got one more thing.
Please.
But I also think we could totally activate like our older community, some of our OGs that are here. And I think this is something that like, this is also a commonality in my travels, right? Is like a lot of my favorite places have like a deep connection to their elderly. And I'm not talking like just elderly, but also like just our older community that maybe isn't like going to start a business tomorrow because they're kind of past that point in their life and they're just enjoying their life a bit more. But what are ways we can activate them? Whether it's just like coming to a talk like this, maybe they don't even know that this is across the street from their home that they've been in for a while. Or can we make like a trash team or something that provides like some jobs for people that maybe have been like experienced out of like, the other jobs that are affordable over here? Can we make like a task force that just goes and cleans up trash and like gives them a sense of purpose, gives our community some vibrance, and then, we can go and see other people from our community and say, hey, thank you for, cleaning the gutter out or whatever. So I think that's also like a part of community that we are definitely lacking in the States in general, but particularly in our little weird tech hippie bubble.
Dude, you got my vote. I mean, you definitely have my vote, because I think you brought up a lot of really important points, especially the elderly, and not overlooking them and making sure that we utilize them for that wisdom and everything, and especially some of those stories that...
Just like respect.
Yeah, but we need to, activate that. Well said. All right. Should we do this raffle? I want to tell you a quick story, right? Because I keep coming back to these principles of how to travel with meaning, because, again, these aren't things that I'm sharing in a course that hopefully we're going to be introducing to the Kinn soon. This is what I've heard from all my guests over and over again. So the brand, again, is Travel with Meaning. But when I first started Travel with Meaning, everyone asked me, what is meaning? Like I figured it out. The truth is, everyone kept telling me the same similar things over and over again. Like we mentioned people, like we mentioned presence. So this raffle today, Traveler's Auto Barn. So also, anyone who doesn't win, you can get a 20% discount. Just use TWM20. But the reason I'm actually working with Traveler's Auto Barn is 15 years ago, when I was in Australia, I bought a one-way ticket, and I ended up in Australia, and I was trying to figure out how to get down the east coast of Australia. And if I bought a car, I probably would have gone through my whole budget. Plus, if it breaks down, I'm not that handy. I wasn't going to hitchhike because my mom would have been pissed. I wasn't going to take a bus. Rental cars were going to be super expensive. So I started calling all these companies. And I finally got a guy named Bastian on the phone from Traveler's Auto Barn. And he gave me a station wagon for 30 days, plus camping gear for $10 a day, which is pretty awesome. Literally 30 greatest days of my life. I slept in the car, I surfed, it was amazing. After I finished, I turned in all this content to them, which, by the way, there was no Instagram at the time. There was nothing. I'm completely dating myself. But he loved it, paid me back, hired me multiple times over the years. And then when they opened in the States, they actually hired me to help them with some marketing and whatnot. I bring this up because this is one of those principles of how to travel with meaning. Not all journeys are measured in miles. Sometimes it's something that has nothing to do with the distance you go, but the connection you make and what happens from there. So with that, I know that's deep for everyone, but with that, we're going to give away a 4-day camper van rental. Why don't you pick a ticket for me?
Oh, no. Don't hate me.
First off, has anyone here ever been in a camper van? Okay. Anyone want to go in a camper van? Even better.
Oh, my God. 387818. Hey!
Okay. We are going to have to check the ticket. I'm just saying. We are checking the tickets.
We're definitely checking.
We will check your ticket. Come find me after. Let me get your email, and I will send you a little coupon, gift card from Traveler's Auto Barn to have a 4-day rental. So that's very cool. Again, everyone, my name is Mike Schibel. Let's give it up one more time for Nick. Make sure you go check out Gnarwhal. Make sure you go check out Companion. Support our local community. Check us out with Travel with Meaning. Give us a follow on social. If you're interested in a course of how to travel with meaning, we're going to limit this to probably 10 people. But give me an email. Let me know. Come talk to me. Talk to the Kinn about doing something here. But again, thank you for being here and have a beautiful day. Thank you.
Cheers, y'all.